Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Yeah. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You can't go out, man, forget my peace. You take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the prize. Not so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
It's Step Dan time. That's right, guys. Dan's out. That means, kids, we're all going to have ice cream today. Yay!
I don't really like ice cream.
No?
No.
It's
too cold.
Froyo?
It hurts my teeth.
How about that? I want to go to so many different places today. There's so many different directions I want to take this show, but I have to start with this story that I saw literally moments before we came on air. Because I was sitting in the eating area or outside in the living room, whatever we call this place right here, and Roy cackled. And I said, "What's up?" And he started saying, "Oh, this thing with Jamel Hill." And I said, "The Phil Collins story." And Roy looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, "Oh, so this isn't about the same thing that I saw," which is Jamel on her podcast interviewed Ramel Ross, the director. He's nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay for Nickel Boys, right? But he also played college basketball at Georgetown, that's a pretty amazing kind of background for someone in Hollywood. And he tells a story about one time where Michael Jordan showed up to play pickup hoops with the team. And they're like, "Oh, it was great." And it's like, and he brought Randy Moss with him. And he said, "Now, guys," Michael Jordan is telling them, "Guys, you got to be cool. You can't ask for autographs or pictures or anything like that. But we have a special guest coming." And the special guest was Phil Collins.
Oh, wow.
Michael thought he was a bigger star than Randy Moss.
Phil Collins. But it is kind of crazy. Phil Collins come play ball with us?
That is wild. I've got him at 5'5". How tall is Phil Collins?
You know what? He could be 6'2". Phil Collins hooping. Like, what does Phil Collins' game look like? What do you guys think? Right?
He's 5'6".
5'6", so he's got to be shifty, right? Little small guard, get in there.
Point of attack defender.
Yep.
Like Scott Skiles. I don't know what.
Game.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Playmaker.
It's a hairline.
Great passer, yeah.
Yeah, you're doing hairline.
He's penetrating. Feisty, right?
Oh, yeah, tenacious.
Definitely a passer. I mean, who has the all-time record for assist in a game?
Scott Skiles.
Doesn't he kind of look like Scott Skiles?
Kind of does. It's a hairline thing.
Yeah, receding, yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me of the only other story I can think of that rivals that as far as what? I knew this guy. He's an agent, and he is from Minnesota. And when he was getting his law degree, he used to play in this pickup game. And it was one of those things where it's a Sunday pickup game, and everyone knows someone through someone else. You know the deal. You've been to these pickup runs where it's the same 15 to 17 people show up every week. Sometimes it's this 12, sometimes it's that 12. But, it's the same group of people. Mm-hmm. You know them, but you don't know them outside of this, really, right? So Izzy and Mike and Raj, right? And so the guy Raj was a premium shit talker, right? Great basketball player. Penetrating, dribbling, shooting, and talk the whole time. Raj,
what's happening?
A big personality, right? So maybe 4 or 5 weeks go by and Raj doesn't show up, and so one of the guys is like, "Hey, what was Raj okay?
What's happening now?
What? Yeah, what's going on with Raj?" And it's "Oh, Raj is on tour with his band," and it's like, "Raj is in a band?" And it's like, "Yeah, it's because you don't know these people's backgrounds and lives outside of this." And he said, and then the next year, Purple Rain came out.
Oh no.
Prince Roger Nelson.
He was in the Revolution?
It was
Wait,
Prince.
It was Prince?
It was Prince.
Prince Rogers. Yeah.
So Prince, all the stuff about the Charlie Murphy True Hollywood Story about Prince being a basketball player and talking trash and being amazing and all that, apparently 1,000% true. 1,000% true. And obviously, it took a life of its own after it was told on the Chappelle Show. But my question is this. Why haven't we heard about the Phil Collins stories? If Phil Collins is out here playing pickup ball with Michael Jordan and Randy Moss.
But hang on a second.
And Randy Moss could hoop, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't he high school teammates with
Jason
White
Williams,
Chocolate?
yep.
Williams, yeah,
Yep.
they were buddies. Prince is famously even shorter
Yes.
than Phil Collins.
Yeah.
How did people not know that this little 5'2" dude wasn't Prince?
Because he wasn't Prince at the time. He was Raj. Like, imagine, Izzy, you're not catching him at the peak of, like, when doves cry. You're catching him as he's, like, touring small venues, trying to make a living.
The artist soon to be named Prince.
There you go. It's like a prequel. The other name, and this one will blow you guys away. You guys know who Bruce Hornsby is?
Yeah, he
That's
has
just the
range.
way
Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
This is one of my favorite stories.
So Bruce Hornsby, another big basketball fan. So one day, Bruce Hornsby gets to go to practice in Philly when Allen Iverson is there. After the practice, he's like, "Hey, you want to play one-on-one?" And Bruce Hornsby won. Bruce
get outta
Hornsby
here.
beat Allen Iverson in one-on-one.
Somebody tell me how tall Bruce Hornsby is. That's all I care about. That's no way he beat Allen Iverson.
Dude,
one-on-one.
I'm telling you, some of these musicians.
6'4".
Oh,
Wow. Okay.
that's just the way it
that's
is.
possible. He could have just posted him up the whole time.
He toured with the Dead too.
Did he?
I think so.
Didn't he?
And the name's ringing a bell.
Things will never be the same.
But so Phil Collins, we got him as feisty. We got him as dribble penetration, playmaker. Defensively, how is he?
Oh, he's a turnstile.
Yeah?
I mean, first of all, you can post him up, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. He's probably going to foul the heck out of you in the post and say he didn't. All short people do that.
I'm thinking Jose Alvarado, right?
Yeah, I think he'd be pretty good against all odds.
Just like a pest. Just completely undercutting you at the knee. Like, not dirty, but walking right up to that line of, hey, man, like, it's just a pickup game. By the way, the other story that Ramel Ross tells is from that game was that Randy Moss grabbed the rebound and then one dribble drops a dunked on Ruben Boomshay, which one of the great names in basketball
You
history.
could have dropped a better name right there.
Ruben Boomshay.
Who did Randy Moss just dunk on? Oh, that was Ruben Boomshay. Also of Georgetown, right? That's where they played?
Yep, Georgetown.
Crazy.
Georgetown legends. The Cavs and the Celtics play tonight. And for almost everybody, this is the top two teams in the Eastern Conference.
Peyton Pritchard is the Phil Collins of the NBA.
There
right
you
now,
go.
is he
That's
not?
another comp. Peyton Pritchard. I could see Phil
I
Collins.
could definitely
like
see
that.
Phil launching from like 30.
But not with the volume, though. Because remember, this is like 2003 probably. It's early 2000s. So
He's not slashing to the basket.
No, he is. But he's not shooting that many threes. He's pulling from deep when he does. But not too many, right?
Right, yeah.
Because that's like only to be used in the case of a like nuclear attack, right?
Can you imagine him calling the plays, putting his hand up like, over there? All right, set a screen over here.
Oh, yeah. If Phil Collins, like, telling Mike, get away. Randy, come here. Set that screen. And
He
then,
wants MJ to set the screen.
and then, like, in a dead ball, he puts his arm around MJ's waist. He's like, this is what I want you to do. And MJ's like, oh, okay.
He's hand checking.
Oh, man. But, yeah, no, Cavs, Celtics. Izzy.
Yo.
We often talk about, well, I have to see them do it, right? Even the Celtics, who won last year, literally up until last year, everyone was like, well, until they do it in the playoffs, I can't trust them. And the Cavs have been a team that's had less modest success in the playoffs than Boston had up until last year, right? They'd never been to a conference finals with this group. Their best players have never been to a conference final, and Donovan Mitchell, he's been to the second round a bunch of times. But eerily, their season and what's happening to them is a lot like what happened to Golden State a decade ago. Literally 10 years ago, Golden State was a nice little team. Go to the playoffs a couple times. We'll go to the second round. But no one would say this is a championship team. Then a new head coach
Ethan
comes
Strauss
in.
did.
Ethan Strauss did. And I'll tell you, the three people who said the Warriors that year were going to win a championship before pretty much anyone else. Ethan Strauss said it before the season started. Leandro Barbosa said it, I want to say, like in
It
January.
doesn't count though because he's on the team.
But it was shocking.
Okay.
It wasn't. It was shocking. Like in a post game interview, hey, great winner, you guys. How you guys feeling? It's like, I think we're gonna be championship. Like what? Everyone's like, what are you talking about? It was such a, and it was just like, yeah, it's gonna happen. It was the same kind of confidence of Ethan, where it's like, if you saw what I saw, you'd know, like, oh, no one's beating them. And then the other person, and this one always shocks people. Shaq, Super Bowl weekend, told me that.
Shaq always goes against the grain.
But
there's nothing. It's a win-win situation for him because obviously if he's right, he's going to say, "I saw it before everybody," and if he's wrong, nobody's going to remember. And it's Shaq. He does it all the time.
He never said it on air.
I think he said the Mavs were going to beat the Lakers in that game against Luka that first time. It was like everybody else was like, "Oh, of course the Lakers are going to win. They're not going to let him lose," and he just wanted to go the other way.
If Shaq gives a prediction in a forest, no one's around to hear.
That's a bit of a look at me, Louie, right?
I mean,
Shaq
He
told
gave
me
you
Super Bowl
he
weekend.
gave you a private prediction.
Because this is how it went down. He said, who do you think is going to win? And I said, well, who do you think is going to win, big fella? And obviously his rhetoric on TV is, give it to the big man. You can't win shooting, or like all these shooting too many jumpers, et cetera. And he looked at me and he said, nobody's beating them light-skinned boys. Nobody. I was like, what? He's like, and then he pulled out his phone and he showed me a video of his son, who at the time, Sharif, was, I want to say, either a freshman or a sophomore in high school. And it was like, he's 6'9", and he said, everything I'm teaching him is perimeter. Shoot threes, but like that's the way the game is going. And I'm looking, I'm like, this is Shaquille O'Neal, the patron saint of throw it down low, and why isn't the big man, da-da-da, and Dwight Howard needs to do more and all that stuff. And even he was so in on that, as it's unstoppable. But the rest of, I want to say, basketball in America was like, you can't win like that. You can't win like that. And then they ultimately win. And then next thing you know, it's like, of course they won. And of course they became this.
Well,
this
they started
juggernaut.
off like 21-2 that year and had, a good amount of health that they were, probably LeBron called them somebody called them the healthiest team ever. But if you're trying to get me to say that about the Cavs this year, you got it. I'm going to say it.
Okay.
I think they're going to be in the finals. At the very least, I think they'll be in the finals. All the elements are basically copying that Golden State team. And if you go to 2022, Kenny Atkinson was an assistant coach on that championship team with the Warriors, and he's a damn good coach. They have, all the elements. And I'll say this. I sort of talked highly about it when they made that trade, but the trade for DeAndre Hunter, I think is absolutely huge for them. Like they're going to have stretches in their second unit with Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter where they expand the lead. Like they're going to do the same thing that Warriors team did where you brought in whatever Sean Livingston and Maurice Spates or whomever
Leandro
else.
Barbosa.
And Leandro Barbosa and go on these crazy runs. I think Cleveland has all the elements and just need to stay healthy.
Mike lit up at just hearing the name Mo Spates.
Yeah. You're
little
taking
tiny
me
hat.
back. A little mole on his head.
Yeah, a little growth. Mo Speezy.
It's a Gator.
Simpler time.
Yeah.
Mo Spates, man, it's too long of a story, but one of the funniest pre-draft interviews we've ever had. That dude, because it was, first of all, we asked Billy Donovan and his staff, hey, what can you tell us about Mo Spates? And all they kept talking about was his perimeter game. And we're like, what are you talking about? All he did was post up at Florida. And then he came in, and his workout was literally all like three-pointers and pulling up off the dribble. Like, what is all this? And it's like, oh, because Billy wouldn't let him shoot.
Speaking of Ethan Strauss, in his book, wasn't there something about KD saying, how the hell do they call you Mo Buckets if you've never averaged like 20 in the league?
20, that's...
With the Cavs and the Celtics tonight, I mean, obviously this is a battle for Eastern Conference supremacy, but for you guys, how close do you think those teams are to Oklahoma City? Like, do you think that's just a battle for them, and Oklahoma City's going to run away with it,
You
win
just
Western
opened up
Conference,
a door
and be
for Amin here. He is huge OKC fan. He believes they're going to win it all. I don't even think they're getting to the finals, but I can't really argue with him about this.
This is my nightmare as a basketball media person who travels to cover the finals. I think the finals is going to be Cleveland versus Oklahoma City.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're all the way there on Cleveland being a finals team, and you think Oklahoma City now is ready to just sort of run its way through the West.
They've done it. They
I agree with you,
everything.
actually.
Every question mark you could have possibly had about them has been answered. And
They don't have a flaw.
They don't have a flaw, and they have the experience. They did it last year. Now they know. They have that taste in their mouth. They've got all the makings of a championship team.
Would you ever sit out an NBA Finals because you're like, I just don't feel like going back to Cleveland? Because Cleveland is your least favorite city.
Oh, not my least.
Really?
It's up there.
It's the one that
Chicago.
I've heard you complain the most about.
Is it your least favorite NBA city, period?
Yeah, I was talking NBA cities. Cleveland isn't the bottom. It's up there, though. I'm trying to think what are the other
Sacramento.
Means bottom 5 NBA cities.
Well,
You've always complained about Chicago.
Chicago. I don't like Chicago as a city.
Who doesn't like Chicago?
I don't like
Wow.
Chicago.
Why?
Are you only going during the winter?
You don't
No.
like Portillo's.
I've
Yeah,
been,
you don't like Portillo's?
You don't like summertime shy?
dude. I've been to Chicago every season of the year, and every single time I go, the weather is awful.
Really?
No.
That's
Jessica,
unfortunate.
why
There
are
was
you
one time during the early pandemic or late pandemic, seemed like till 2021. I went because I had to do training camp radio, interviewing the Chicago Bulls, and my flight wasn't until like 9 p.m. and I was done with work like at noon. And so my buddy Sean Little was like, "All right, let's hang out in Chicago," because he's from Chicago. And so we went out, and the weather was great. And I was like, "Man, maybe I've misjudged." We went to this bar where like they pour shots in an ice little thing, and then you throw it, and it hits the bell and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I've misjudged this place. Maybe I misjudged this place. And my flight was delayed, so I was like, okay, we stay a little longer. So then at like 10 o'clock, I'm like, all right, I got to get going. And I get to the airport at like 10:45, right? My flight's at 1 in the morning because it's been super delayed. And it's empty. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to fly right through security. And I go and like the chain link fence is down. I said, well, maybe the next one. And I keep going. I'm like, they're all closed. And so I asked somebody, I'm like, oh, yeah, this whole terminal's closed. You got to go to, like, the next terminal and then walk over. I'm like, well, that sounds silly,
So
but
this
okay.
is why you hate an entire city
Hold on.
because of an airport
No,
experience?
listen to
Let
this.
him cook.
Listen
Well,
to
it's
this.
O'Hare, so I kind of see where he's going.
So
with
I
this.
go to the next terminal. It's all closed. So I'm like, what do? I grab, like, some airline person, and they're like, oh, yeah, the airport's closed.
The entire airport?
I'm like, what do you mean the airport is closed? So I call American Airlines and say, yo, I can't get in. My flight hasn't left yet. Like, they're not even boarding, but I can't get in. How do I get in? And they said, oh, yeah, the airport's closed. What? I'm like, but the planes are still here.
What year was this?
2021.
Wow.
And so-
I've been there before it opens. Like, I had a 4 a.m. flight to Phoenix once, actually.
Uh-huh.
And I got there at like 3-something
Yeah.
to go through TSA. And I was just waiting for them to open up a lane.
I've been traveling my entire life, for damn near 46 years at this point. I have never heard of the concept of, sorry, the airport's closed, like it's a bank or a McDonald's or something.
You know what? Fair complaint. O'Hare, I used to love it, but I could see as a traveler why it would be somewhere that you hate, because now I don't live in Chicago anymore. So I'm just going and experiencing most of my trip through how easy or hard it was to get through O'Hare. Now I hate it. There's just
Awful.
not the new Delta terminal on Terminal 5 is actually not that bad, but I digress.
Is it open 24 hours?
Great question. I don't know. I do know that if you need to catch a ride share, you have to go back to Terminal
That's
1.
the other thing.
It's bananas.
Like, hey, every effing airport in America, dare I say it, the world, hey, every terminal has a rideshare pickup right there, either on the curb or you go into like the parking lot, right? O'Hare's the only one where, hey, especially, don't let it be a blizzard. You got to walk back like 200
There's like
yards.
a little train thing, yeah.
Go that way. And I said, well, is there like a tunnel? Or nope. Go outside and brave the elements.
I do love the tunnel with the moving walkway and the art installation on the ceiling. Anyways, I digress. You went to a basic bitch bar in Chicago. You had a nice time. It was nice out. Wow. Maybe give it a fifth chance.
I mean,
it's not that when it's nice out, it's a great city.
Yeah, but it's just like it snowed. One time I went in April and it snowed.
So all you need to enjoy Chicago is to be there when the airport is open, and you will once again love that city.
And what else? And the weather has to not suck.
Go between June and September, yeah.
And go to Midway.
Phoenix.
Yeah, fly through Midway.
What'd you say?
Go to Midway.
Go to Midway?
Yeah.
Is Midway's like a Greyhound bus terminal, right?
No, Midway's fine. They actually just redid it. I used to only fly in and out of Midway.
Is it
for
closer than
years. Depending on where you're going. If you're going to the United Center, no. O'Hare is definitely closer.
Okay.
If you're going to the city, also depends where you're going. But
I think I like the Cavs tonight.
Yeah? I mean, here's the thing. The Celtics are coming off of a big loss to Detroit. And so typically the formula is when they lose, they come back
It's a good point.
extra hard.
I think I like the Celtics tonight.
Between Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum, in the playoffs, who do you trust more? It's a crazy question because one of them's been to the finals and lost
Mitchell.
one and won one.
Dude.
It's wild because he can have the bigger games, but I don't trust him individually to take those good shots every time. I feel like he's going to come up and chuck every once in a while. It's going to be like, hey, if I happen to be on, this is going to be great. If not, hey, I'm going to go 5 for 20. Somebody else pick me up.
And I know it was the bubble, but individually, Donovan Mitchell, by head and shoulders, had the best playoff series out of the two.
Yeah, and that's where – did he have 2 50-point games in the bubble?
Yeah.
He hasn't replicated that
He was dealing with
outside.
something the last go-round in the playoffs, right? Like he wasn't completely healthy.
Last season?
Yeah.
He was hurt, He was hurt, and he ended up missing most of that Celtics series, as did a lot of other people on the Cavs. Jared Allen missed a lot of time.
Yeah, that was a huge one for them.
So it's just it's one of those things where I think we tend to, rightfully so, give the benefit of the doubt to the team that has the experience, right? If we haven't seen you, and again, I'm not even talking about the Celtics.
That you
got to
suffer.
Yeah, but it's not even about them winning a championship. It's that the Celtics have a lot of playoff experience. Despite being young, all those guys have 100 games of playoff.
Jason Tatum has a shot to be the most playoff experienced player ever.
Ever, yeah, right? Because he plays every year in the playoffs, and they more often than not they go past the second round. And so and obviously with 7-game series and all that stuff. But ultimately, I wonder for the Cavs, is it enough? When is enough, right? When have
they shown enough?
When have you? Well, no, we all know they've shown enough when they win a championship, and they're like, oh yeah, of course. But the other part of it is, when is enough experience in order for us to be like, okay, the experience part isn't a thing anymore?
It depends on what type of players you have. I feel like with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and maybe them not actually getting along, it takes a taste of every round, and it happens to be that way, right? They had the finals lost and then finals and won. So I don't know. I think for certain teams like the Warriors, they were a second-round loss and then 2 years later won a championship. So I think you need to experience once or twice. Once you get all the sort of the nerves out about being at the bigger rounds, because even as somebody covering it, I covered the league starting in 2000. When I got to 2006, it was covering my first finals. Even I felt the pressure. I was like, this is a lot.
It is, the finals is a weird time, man. It's because conference finals actually is the weirdest. I say this all the time about the playoffs. When the playoffs start, there's so many teams playing, it kind of feels like a regular season night. For just everyone's kind of playing. Obviously, the level of basketball is higher, it's more intense, but because there's so many other things happening, you don't feel like it's actually that special. Then you get to the second round, and there's 2 games a night, the Eastern Conference game and the Western Conference game. But you still feel like there's a lot of stories and things being talked about 8 or however many different teams. Then you get to the conference finals. And in the conference finals, there's 1 game a night. And then you feel, oh, man, everybody is watching just us.
So when Asar Thompson crosses you up and turns you around and you look like a moron in the conference finals, everybody's going to be on that.
It doesn't fly under the radar something that might happen in the first round or even the second round. And then obviously the finals, you've got all that time. The difference between the finals and conference finals is not only are you the only game of the night, but also when I don't play, there's nothing. There's just that void where game 1 is Thursday and game 2 ain't until Sunday. And so we're sitting around waiting to see what's going to happen.
I want to ask this of Scal when we talk to him later, Brian Scalabrine, but do Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown hate each other? Are we going to go back after all these years and figure out this was a Kobe Shaq situation and neither of them liked each other and they could have won a lot more if they actually got along? Because I just get the sense that they can't stand each other. And I've read that a couple of times, but there's really nothing, backing that up in terms of information.
This feels like the Bradley Beal, John Wall conversations of a decade ago, right? We're like, and they're like, no, we're best buds. And then afterwards, this guy's cool, but I couldn't stand playing with him. I'm like, oh, okay.
Do we think Scal will actually give us a straight answer on that?
Absolutely not.
Darn.
Absolutely not.
I thought basketball was dead, by the way.
It's not that well.
It's in total shambles.
What a great start to the show.
I got called a coward and a traitor, Mike, because on Oddball, I just said that I could see both sides of PK Subban's argument, and I get that, NHL looks pretty good right now compared to the NBA, especially after All-Star Weekend. A coward and a traitor.
You're not American anymore?
I agree.
It's PK Subban acted in bad faith. You have to disclose exactly why you don't watch it at the very beginning before you make character assassinations.
Oh, that's the recipe?
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have to wear your bias on your sleeve. Like, for one, the primary reason why I don't watch a sport anymore is because the Miami Heat stink. And I've seen this, and I've been bored by their approach for the last 2 years. They didn't care about the regular season, so I responded in kind. But secondarily, because my team is no good, it allows me to see all the other flaws in the sport and not care as much. But I do want to salute Donovan Mitchell, because yesterday we were talking about, not necessarily through his own actions, but it just hasn't worked out for Kevin Durant, like the decisions he's ended up making. And some of these things are out of his control. Like, I'm sure in a vacuum he'd prefer to have gone to Miami than Phoenix, but he gave a couple of destinations, and he ended up going to Phoenix. There are certain things out of his control. His teammates getting injured. Kyrie, although you do take that as a data point with Kyrie Irving. You have to account for Kyrie-ing when you decide to team up with him. But it's worked out on the opposite end, I think, for Donovan Mitchell, and he doesn't have the same amount of title or bust pressure surrounding him the way that Kevin Durant does. He had the opportunity to play hardball with the Cavs. He decided to extend. Again, would Cleveland have been his top destination? He didn't have that much influence over it. No, he probably would have preferred to go somewhere else, but it's worked. He brought along a fledgling franchise, became the face of it, and now they're legit title contenders. It's really worked out for Donovan Mitchell.
I have a slightly different way of looking at, like, the way I predict. Like, I think Cleveland is going to make the finals in the Eastern Conference. I don't even know who I think is going to make it in the West. Probably OKC if you really break it down. But if you tell me who are the two teams,
what a huge NBA Finals for Adam Silver
Dude,
at this moment in time. Cleveland, OKC, that'll get him.
But this would be a more exciting
Stern
one.
Will crawl out of the grave. I'm like, stop it.
The two teams that I'm most afraid of in respective conferences is Milwaukee in the East because of Giannis.
Yes.
And now with Kuz, just another option there. Yeah. And Golden State in the West.
Come to my side of it.
I want to talk about Golden State.
How is Steph Curry 36 years old, man? Like, that's wild. He still looks like he's, the babyface assassin.
His game is going to age with grace because of his style, and I guess I'm always going to be worried about his ankles, but he's shown that. But I do have questions because they've played really well with Jimmy Butler in terms of wins and losses.
Oh, boy.
But I also look at Jimmy Butler's stats, I'm a little confused by it. He's shooting 43% from the field. He's like 1 for 14 from 3.
It's almost like that's why he needed a star in Miami, so he could struggle a little bit.
100%. 100%. But a lot of the people making like Stephen A. Smith, if I watch First Take on mute here, and I'm assuming that Jimmy Butler's lighting the world on fire because every highlight that they show is, him playing within the offense. And then I look at the numbers. I'm like, this doesn't really make sense. So why is it working so well? Is it competition that they're going up against? Or is Jimmy Butler doing things that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheet that clear things up for Steph and alleviate some of that pressure?
Yes. The answer is yes. It's all of those things, right? Number one, Jimmy Butler's arrival has made Steph Curry sit back up like Marty McFly in the Enchantment Under the Sea dance after his parents kiss, right? Like, Earth Angel, Earth Angel. He's playing that guitar hard now, right? In a way that he was fading. Dude, it looked not great for Steph Curry. He looked like, dare I say it, like Father Time was knocking on that door. And Jimmy Butler gets there, and all of a sudden, this dude is revitalized, right? Jimmy Butler offers the perfect counterbalance in terms of interior play and, more importantly, attention. It's simultaneously made both of their lives a lot easier than it was a month ago, where it's like, oh, there's somebody else you have to worry about every single night.
Jeremy, tell me you didn't feel this deep down in your heart when Jimmy is sitting there drawing up a play in the huddle.
God.
It's exactly parroting something that Spo has told him in the past.
That's exactly right.
And then it absolutely worked. I'm just like, dude, don't do it, man.
It's been interesting to see the reaction both nationally and locally to the Warriors winning as much as they have, and the things that have been put on display within media and social media about Jimmy and his game, things that weren't necessarily being celebrated the last couple of years until playoff time, and now are all over every highlight reel that you could possibly see. So it's interesting to see that. It's hard to watch Jimmy embrace the Warriors franchise the way that he has, and it's really amazing to think that, he's willing to lavish every single franchise he goes to with the praise of being the greatest franchise that he's ever played for, and everything is great, and I'm allowed to be me.
And he pooped his pants.
Well, he did. I mean,
I asked Brandon
he pooped his
Pajemski about
pants,
that. They said they did not ask him about it.
which means he pooped his pants.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you don't, it's like, no, that wasn't poop. It was just sat on some ketchup or whatever. By the way, great job by Jeremy playing Don't Look Now. You did it.
Cardboard cut over here.
Pat Riley's a menace.
I thought it was a statue.
Why did you let him pick your nose, Dare Bear?
Pat Riley? Yeah. Pat Riley's allowed to do anything.
There it is.
I think it just shows, by the way, like the folks that they are trying to use or they had used in the past, even if you go to Jordan Poole, Otto Porter, like you don't need to be that competent to be able to play with that group and have Steph sort of carry you. And obviously Jimmy is beyond competent. Mm-hmm. He can have a bad day on that team and still, win and have a comeback win against the Magic because of Steph. And he, unlike there was nobody on that Heat team that he was constantly trying to set up, right? There wasn't.
That's what's kind of funny, right? Is like this Heat team this year really could have used that Jimmy Butler. Like Tyler Hero taking the leap that he has offensively could have been helped out a lot by a guy going downhill and creating things.
It's also why you can't dismiss like the Gabe Vincent, Max Strus stuff.
Sure.
And how that became some sort of resentment that Jimmy kept.
Which is so interesting, right? Because all anyone complained about was that they kept running it back, and yet all they did was tweak this roster around him the entire time. They just didn't cash in on trading the young all-stars that they had, the young guys that would become all-stars, to get him some other individual co-star that who knows if they would have had the same amount of success as they've had the last several years. But it is interesting to see a revitalized Jimmy because this was ultimately the perfect scenario. You're not the guy, but you've got to be the best number 2 in the league 25 times to make a deep playoff run. Like 25 times total. Regular season and playoffs included. You need to be your best 25 more times, and then you can coast for the next 2 years.
I love the idea that you said, Jimmy says, I'm allowed to be me, right? I'm allowed to
It's hilarious.
do whatever I want, right? And it made me think of, in Hollywood, these directors, these movie makers, being allowed to do whatever the hell they want. The Oscars are on Sunday, and one of the movies that's up, or two of the movies I should say are up, are The Brutalist and Wicked. And both of them are incredibly long movies. And I sat there and I thought to myself as I watched Wicked, you know what, man? We often villainize the studios. Like, they wouldn't let the director and his vision or whatever. Like, just let him make the movie the way he or she wanted it to be made. And now I'm like, you know what? They were right, man. They were right. Hey, get this thing under 90 minutes.
Cut it.
90 minutes?
No, I mean, I felt this way last year, too, with Killers of the Flower Moon, which was a movie I was really excited to see. The acting was really good in it.
Into it.
The movie was, the book was amazing. And then the movie, it's just like Martin Scorsese made no choices. Like he left everything in, and so it just had a 3.5 hour long runtime, and it was just very, very long. And so I think a lot of people just didn't watch it because it's just such a massive time commitment, which is a bummer because it's an important story.
I can't imagine trying to watch that in a theater. Oh, I would have been so knocked out.
Man, I loved it.
You watched it in theater?
What, Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yeah.
I saw it in
I really
Alamo
liked the
Draft
movie.
House. I loved it.
I really liked the movie too, but I think it could have been better.
I also saw it by myself, which I kind of dig.
Going to the movies
I
by
like going
yourself?
to
The movies
by
by
myself,
myself,
too.
especially a theater like Alamo Draft House, like it's got to be a really stinky movie for me to not enjoy.
But
that
this year,
experience.
Wicked, like you said, Jeremy and I got in an argument about this yesterday because disagreement. We had a disagreement.
Argument is strong.
She came down in a bubble.
Dog.
They stretched it. First of all, they made it into 2 parts, and so
Well,
part one,
The fact that part one is as long as it is, and it's
2 hours and 40 minutes long, and you don't find out what happens. 'cause
Are you
it's
a
only
Wicked hater?
Part one.
I thought it was a good movie, right? I
thought it was a great movie.
I was
It
very.
is a great movie.
I was entertained.
I just think it could have been better.
It's just exactly. It's just like, dude, make like you said in the break room. Make some choices.
Make some choice. Same with The Brutalist. Like, the first half of the movie is pretty good. I'm following.
We get that sleeper bod from Adrian Brody.
Then there's a 1 minute intermission, and then the second half of the movie is another hour and 40 minutes long, and I'm not exactly sure what the point of it was.
I'm a studio head, and my filmmaker comes up to me and says, "Okay, the movie's gonna go like this," and then there's an intermission. I say, "Get out of my office. I don't care who you are."
Yeah, way too long. Way too long.
Intermission.
Well,
But-
with Wicked, they're trying to capitalize on the intellectual property and get 2
Yes.
movies out of that if you're going to spend the amount of money that you have.
On
But
marketing, too.
Yeah, on marketing was
ginormous
crazy.
marketing
But at the
budget.
same time, this is a show that, like, everything that happened in the plot of the first half, outside of one thing that they add to do fan service and service back to the original Broadway performers, where they added a scene that killed about 10 minutes. It's all plot that happens before. The difference is you're taking something that's a Broadway musical that paces really fast. There's no giant landscape shots or beautiful scenery or waiting 10 seconds between lines delivered. You're going at a pace because it's a Broadway show. So you're taking something that at that time works in an hour and a half before an intermission and just automatically becomes 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hour, 20 minutes. And then where Jess and I agreed is they ruined the momentum of Defying Gravity, the final song,
Such a
because they
bummer.
cut so many times between the songs.
They milked that shit in the school where she gets her hat and all that. I'm like, I fell asleep during that point in the theater.
Here's where
Great nap, by the way.
where I was officially like, I'm lost, because I was like, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande were so good. Like, they carried that movie. I thought the production, the set, everything, the costumes were amazing. Where I was officially lost was during Defying Gravity, which is Wicked's not my favorite musical, but I think Defying Gravity is one of the best musical numbers on stage. It's like the huge crescendo before the intermission in the Broadway show, and there were so many breaks during it. It became like a 25-minute long scene, and they showed like 6 different camera angles of her like picking up a broom, and I'm like, I'm like, come on, like this was like the
Choose
moment
one.
you're waiting for, and then they kept cutting it up and breaking it up. I know Wicked heads were upset about that specifically, but man, just I wish it was just one song.
Make some choices, man.
Yeah.
Make some choices. That's all we're asking. I'm going to formulate a list of top 5 places to take a nap in. I'm pretty sure number 1 is at the movies, but we'll give you all of that when we come back.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is sponsored by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Izzy, yesterday was the 9-year anniversary of Steph Curry pulling up
Oh, what'd you do to celebrate?
from half court. Well, I popped some champagne, and then I said, bang, bang. The half court shot against Oklahoma City. And the backstory to that was...
Don't call it a half-court shot.
What do you want to call
It was
it?
about a 35-footer.
It was more than 35 feet.
Let's look up the stats.
It was.
He said the half-court shot, and I knew what he was talking about.
Exactly.
There was
Logo,
one
logo
yesterday. I
3?
thought he
It
was
was
talking about the one
well
yesterday.
past the logo.
I mean, if it's a logo 3, it's half court.
Look it up again. I think it was
The
just a
rare
standard
regular
logo
season
3.
moment that transcends.
Not rare. I'm not gonna let you do.
Really?
It was a double bang.
I'm not gonna let you do that. Not rare.
In
but
terms
also,
of like an appointment, like single, like a regular season game in its own TV window, like
It
that's
felt
kind of
huger than any regular season game since.
it was a Saturday night ABC game, right?
certainly magnified for a regular season.
Yeah, I mean, and this was in the middle of the Warriors having their historic season and Curry having a historic season of his own. But I remember in that year, again, this is the second Ethan Strauss drop in one episode, but I said to Ethan, like, what happens in practice that like doesn't happen in the game? And he said, well, they talk about Steph shoots from half court routinely. And like, what do you mean shoots? Like he just like takes, the little throw. He's like, no, like he's shooting jump shots from half court.
In rhythm jump shots.
In rhythm jump shots. And Ethan said, I asked him, why don't you ever do it in a game? And Steph was like, because he was worried that it would literally break people's minds. Like the idea of like basketball has been played a certain way for 70 years, right? And then all of a sudden a guy walks past half court, takes a shot, it will shatter everyone's vision of what basketball is. And then he did that like 2 weeks later, I think, after I had that conversation with Ethan. And now I think about how many people shoot from deep. And it all started from that moment there, 9 years ago.
May I issue you a challenge?
Yes.
Because you said that big regular season moments are not that rare. Mm-hmm. This happened 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Can I challenge you to give me a top 5 regular season moments of the last 10 years?
I absolutely will do that.
You can have
Challenge
Kobe's last game.
accepted.
You can have Kobe's final game, too.
I
Give that to
absolutely.
you.
Well, okay. Thank you.
You can have that one.
I
But do you
absolutely.
want like more recent
I mean,
than
it is
9 years?
one.
Because that was...
Yeah, that was the
within
same
the
season.
last 10, but like do of the 2020s.
Okay.
Regular season moments.
I'll do that. But
While you start- go ahead.
But first, I have a top 5 list that I promised the crowd, which is top 5 best naps you'll ever take. Right?
Any OLIs?
I have one OLI, Roy.
Okay.
When you're on a flight and there's a movie on there that isn't available anywhere else yet other than in the theaters, and you really want to watch that movie, like, oh, great, I get to watch it, you're going to fall asleep, and it's going to be the best nap ever.
Can it ever really be the best nap if you have that back of your mind fear? Oh, I'm flying through the air in a seated position. This could end up terribly.
No, because your intention is not to take a nap in this scenario. Your intention is to watch this movie like, oh, great, they have The Brutalist on, and I don't want to pay $20 to go watch it on
Better
streaming
be a
or
flight
whatever.
to Tokyo. It's going to take you a while to get through it.
Intermission.
Number 5, at work after lunch.
Never had the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, you're at your desk. You just had lunch. It's like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And it's that quiet time. It's not, the morning is very, very busy.
Everyone's digested.
Everyone's
and you kind
digested.
of just put your head down a little.
Yep.
But you put your head down, you wake up with a little drool on the desk, you wake up with lines on your face, and you got to be like, hey, boss, how's it going? Was I sleeping? No.
Look, I'm not telling you what the aftermath is like. I'm telling you,
What the best sleep
you're
is
going to love that. That sleep is going to feel so good, you'll never want it to
And
end.
you'll be so productive afterwards.
I love
'cause
a
you're
good
like,
nap where you got a little bit of drool because you're just like, wow, that was a good one. I would
Yeah.
never do that if I was
Oh, that's
conscious.
REM. That's REM sleep right there.
Number 4, in an Uber on the way back from a night out.
Good answer.
You got to fight that one.
You-
You,
you-
are
you're-
about to knock out.
You rest your head against the window and it's like, oh, it's a good night out. And next thing you know, your Uber driver's like, hey, we're here. I'm like, oh, sorry.
This may be like a difference between you and I thing. I could never fall asleep in an
No,
Uber. I would be
no.
terrified.
Fear
Yeah,
traffic.
you
To
couldn't.
Americas.
No, you're right. You couldn't. But if you did, that
It would feel
sleep
great.
would be amazing. You'd wake up terrified. But that sleep, woo.
It's a good one.
Number 3, with a baby resting on you after the baby's been crying the whole time, and finally the baby fell asleep?
Good answer.
Now, mind you, it's not going to last long because the baby's going to wake up and start crying again. But in those moments where the baby's asleep and you're asleep and you don't want to move, you're 100% maximum comfort.
Those are the moments I just accept praise for putting the baby to sleep and then give it back to its proper owner.
No, you're asleep too. You're asleep too. Number 2, on the couch watching NFL late games.
I thought you were going to say golf.
No.
That is the deepest sleep.
Or
of them all.
baseball.
Golf would never be on my TV.
Baseball would never be on my TV.
But football,
Sorry,
again,
Derek.
you
Golf
want to
nap
watch
is-
them. You want to watch those 4 p.m. games.
You need to watch golf just for the golf nap. I'm telling you, it hits different.
Although I will be watching more baseball now because of Jeremy and my buddy Ryan Bass out in Tampa. You guys.
Yeah,
doing
thanks.
your thing.
We will have also the pitch clock coming back here.
Yeah.
Which
just
was
the
an
week
answer-
before the season.
An answer in the New York Times Friday crossword
Yeah, they were
puzzle
celebrating
today.
our show. The pitch clock.
That's what we're doing here. We're doing plugs in the middle of my top 5 list.
What's Cinephobe?
You've been doing a plug for Oddball this whole morning,
have.
and it's going great.
Monday through Thursday. Every day but Friday.
Same
Right?
thing.
Number 1, at the movies. Let me tell you something. $20. I paid $20 to sit in that chair and pretend to want to watch this movie, and then at some point, my eyes start feeling heavier and heavier, and then I'm out and I wake up and I'm trying to piece together how much of the plot I've missed, but all I can remember is, man, that sleep felt so good. I'm like, I can't believe I spent $20 to go take a nap, but God damn it if it ain't the best nap I've ever had.
I think
Right?
that's the problem that I would have is I don't think I could fall asleep knowing how much money I just spent to be at that movie.
It's just,
I think
it's
I'd
the
be so
noise.
stressed
It's
out.
the
Stakes.
sudden, explosion that's going to wake me up and scare the crap
What
out of
movie
me.
are we
I can sleep
watching?
through
Good,
anything.
any movie. Any
Really?
movie. I've sleep in so. That's my big problem about going to the theaters. I'm terrified that I'm gonna fall asleep. Like I'm
You're
gonna
just
miss
too
it.
cozy.
Roy, I
Way
want to
too
add
close.
2 more. You got the sounder ready? On the Bright Line.
Ooh.
Solid one.
I nearly
It
woke up in
scares me,
Orlando
though.
yesterday.
That's the problem.
I
This is the
the
issue.
doors were closing at Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, wait, I got to get off here.
That's the exact fear. That's the fear is that I'm going to sleep through the couple of stops because I'll sleep through anything.
Right.
I'll sleep through a couple stops and all of a sudden we'll be in Port St. Lucie and I've got an hour and a half until I'm getting to Orlando. And now what? Now I've
guys
got to
could-
pay
I gotta
$100
see
to
me
come
today.
back.
Now you might as well just go to Orlando.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Visit
just have a
Stugotz.
weekend.
And
Magic
the last
Kingdom.
one is watching an episode of Severance. Not because it's a bad show. I absolutely love the show. I've just had to watch episodes over and over again because
Rewind.
it's so soothing that it just puts me to sleep.
I found that probably is an OLI for me. Watching a dramatic show where you have to pay attention, like Shogun. I love Shogun. Great show, but there were so many times, especially because it's so much subtitle, I get droopy-eyed, and the next thing I know is like, wait, I've been listening to them talk, and my sleep brain is talking to me saying, you understand, you hear them, you know what's happening. They're like, no, you don't speak Japanese, dumbass. Like, you have to rewind and watch it all again to read the subtitles.
Have you ever fallen asleep while getting a massage? This is a very tricky one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very relaxing.
You don't worry about accidentally farting?
No.
No, but now I think I might.
I've
that in
never
our
fallen
heads.
asleep during a massage, in large part because I've gotten a couples massage before in the same room, and Anthony has fallen asleep and starts
You're
snoring.
gay?
And I'm just...
Maybe before that massage, I won't have oranges, garlic, gluten, dairy. What else does Dan
can't
not
just
eat?
have
They
couples
advise-
massages
they
with your
advise-
boys?
Stand up.
I mean,
I hate
the fellas.
massages, but I've done like 2 massages in my life, and like in the
two?
Yeah,
Why-
they
wait,
tell
why
you to
do hate
avoid eating.
massages?
Wait, you've had 2
They don't tell
massages?
you
I don't
that?
like. Yeah, they
I've never
told me
been
to
told
avoid
that
eating.
before. Why do you hate massages?
I've never heard that before.
I don't. I feel like my body's fighting it the entire time. I don't. I get like the feeling afterwards, but I think my body's just relieved that it's over, as opposed to like the runner's high. I don't like. massages.
Does it, what about when Genesis comes?
Oh, I don't like that.
Really?
He doesn't get
No.
mashed, yeah.
Really?
like that at all.
Dude.
Is it just like that you're tight, like you're jumpy? Because I am like a bag of popcorn with it. I'm like, oh, just don't
I'm
worry. don't-
ticklish. My
but-
calves, very ticklish.
Your feet,
calves?
I
same
can't really
thing?
explain it. I don't
Ticklish
find it. I do my
calves?
best to relax
like-
my body. It's not like I'm tense the entire time. I just don't enjoy it.
I have another nap nominee.
What's that?
On a recliner Shea lounge outside at a pool under an umbrella.
Oh, good
where
one.
it's warm, but you're in the shade.
This is great.
Maybe you're reading a book, listening to a podcast, and you kind of just doze off. For
A little White Lotus action, right? I call that the White Lotus. I'm just gonna be out by the
someone
pool.
gets murdered.
Yeah.
You know what wakes me up in those scenarios? A tiny drop of sweat like rolling down your body and pooling in any place absolutely will wake me up. I think there's a bug on me. That's not a good one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I got a good one. At the RNC when your son is speaking.
That goes at the top of the list.
It's a quality one. I want to ask you. I want to circle back to the Oscars because I'm doing what a lot of people are doing, which is trying to cram before the Oscar day. Are you a hardliner about your favorite movie should win Best Picture out of like the nominees, or do you understand that? Look, I understand that I probably don't have the prevailing opinion here. This film probably deserves it, even though it wasn't my favorite, because that's where I am with Wicked. I actually think it's a good thing for the box office and a good thing for studios for Wicked to win, because I think we should be encouraging that type of movie making.
No, the opposite. You have to root against Wicked, not because it's not good, but because it's more of IP and churning out franchises and all that. And anytime we don't reward Hollywood for those kind of movies, I think is a good thing.
But it's a musical, so I think you have to credit them. There is some ambition here when it comes to Wicked. It's not an easy movie to make. They were talking about making it for a very long time.
It's not a new genre, though. Like, we have a new movie musical all the time. I agree with you. It's better. I mean, way better than Cats. It's a lot better than a lot of
Well, that's part of it, right?
Well, I think what I like so much about I'm a stickler. My favorite movie of the year was Alien Romulus. Truly. Yeah. And what I love so much about Alien Romulus is also what I liked a lot about Wicked is I watched this movie. I'm a big Robbie Williams fan. I watched this movie Better Man the other day, and the entire movie looks CGI.
Yeah.
And it's not just like the main character. Everything looks washed out like a Marvel movie.
I totally agree with you on Wicked getting credit for like building an actual set.
Yeah, right. Romulus and Wicked had these practical set designs, and it took me back to a time, and it makes me feel like I'm really, truly immersed in this world. Same thing with Nosferatu. These movies actually transported me to this time and era in a more believable way.
Well, practical effects is making a huge comeback all over. For Disney Plus, Andor season 2 is coming in about a month, and the big thing about Andor was it was all practical effects, real sets, as opposed to The Volume, which is this thing that was literally created to do The Mandalorian. When it's like almost, instead of a green screen, it's a dome, so that the actors, rather than responding to like a tennis ball, like, okay, and that's a monster, they can actually project it on the screen, and so it's more realistic as far as the acting experience. But again, you get that washed out look that you're talking about, and the practical effects on Andor of like real sets, real on location, just gives it a level of, polish that you don't get with CGI.
Look, ideally, the studios would take the lesson that I'd hope that they take, which is build more practical sets, truly immerse your audience in this world. But I think you're right in that all Hollywood and the studios are going to take from that if Wicked wins is more IP, more franchises, more bankable franchises that we can invest in.
I do think that this actually might just have a greater effect on how we produce musicals, though, right? Because the whole issue with Cats was that it was just this weird CGI world where they were like forgetting to do CGI on certain hands, and it was this kind of cheapened version of what.
It's also not the best IP.
Well, it's not a great that in itself as well. But what I would imagine this will do is have more studios investing in musicals the way that Wicked was invested in, rather than trying to do that on the cheap and making a product that feels like that, or even the Mean Girls musical that was like not quite up to snuff. So it's about investing in the property, where Wicked's not like Wicked isn't IP beyond what it is now. They can't extend that story beyond what it is.
They totally can.
Jessica, what was Rebel Wilson's character name in Cats? Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember who she played.
I know it and don't know.
I haven't seen Cats in a
like
really long
Jenny
time.
Annie's Dippin' Dots or some shit like that. I was like, I watched Cats and I have no fucking idea what it's about. Like what?
Jenny Annie Dots.
Yeah. What is it about? What's a Jellicle cat? I really, and I understand this is really pretentious coming from someone who loves Star Wars, but I hate movies that expect you to do homework to understand what the hell is going on. Like, I had to go do homework, figure out, like, what's a Jellicle cat and what's that?
Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats.
What the hell does that mean?
I have no idea.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a wacky stage
I saw
musical.
Cats for 5 minutes, and I was like, we deserve to die. And then I think the pandemic happened shortly after.
I know it happened during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was
like a month later, I think. But
You lost me on the premise. I hate Cats. I'm not going to watch it.
that's not
That's like my dad had a friend who wouldn't watch any movie if there was a horse in it. If a horse showed up midway through the movie, the dude would get up and leave the theater.
So he hated Animal House.
Afraid of
No, and my dad's like, he never explained why. Just like,
So-
I don't like horses.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. If Wicked wins, studios will take the wrong lesson for this. So you're actively rooting against Wicked to win.
Mm-hmm.
What film out of the nominated pictures would Hollywood take the best lessons from?
Best lesson.
What do you think should win? What are you hoping wins for the whole movie industry?
All right, so definitely not Emilia Perez.
No, I think we're all in agreement there.
You know what? I'm gonna go with. I mean, the funny thing is, they're all adapted. They're all.
I don't think Honora
Honora's
was.
not.
No, it's not?
And Honora is one of the favorites to win right now. I thought Honora was actually really good. I think the best capital M movie was Conclave.
So I slept on it.
Which is adapted from a book.
Yeah.
I slept on it. It took me 2 days to get through Conclave. I really enjoyed Conclave. One of my friends told me that he's never gasped so much at a film about old men voting. And I think there were a lot of shocking twists and turns that happened in this movie. And I really liked it, but I slept on it. And I think out of the nominated pictures, my favorite one is Honora.
Yeah. I liked Honora. I felt like it could have been a little better.
Synopsis?
Synopsis is it's a young
horny, man.
woman in Brooklyn who's a stripper, and this son of a Russian oligarch become married, but you're not really sure if she's in love with him or not, which is where I sort of was confused. But then it's sort of a dark comedy because these henchmen come and his family wants them to annul the marriage because they're very dismissive of her, and they're very dehumanizing towards her, and so then it kind of is just a weird, wacky sort of follow along the henchmen in a Nora film for a while
with romance.
When you said it's a horny movie, I said you had my curiosity, and now you have my attention.
No, I've
too,
never
but I
seen
needed
so
more
much sex in
explanation.
a film.
Movies to root against. A Complete Unknown. Again, everyone tells me that he did an amazing job. That's
he did.
great.
I really liked it.
I don't need any more biopics.
I'm about 25 minutes in. I'm never going to say a bad thing about a James Mangold biopic. I'm not a big Bob Dylan guy, but I'm appreciating the performance so far.
Sure. I just don't need any more biopics.
You're about to get one with Jeremy Allen White. So
What's he playing?
he's doing a Springsteen biopic that is just based off of one album that he recorded. So it's based off the recording of Nebraska.
So
I think
You're
that
gonna
was-
love it.
That was why A Complete Unknown worked for me, I think, because it only was 4 years of
Yeah.
Bob Dylan. It wasn't he was born in Minnesota and he's such a mystery, and now he's 87 years old.
Another movie to root against, and this one I did see, Dune Part 2. Boring.
I liked the Dune movies,
Dune,
though.
Dune Part 1 was good.
I'm with you, but I do think that we should be encouraging films like Dune.
No, it's IP and franchise. And,
I mean,
and we got
it
that
was
boring,
famously an impossible movie to adapt, though,
Yeah.
and he found a way to do it.
But also,
Just
we got
not great.
that boring ass HBO show, which even though HBO does great content, I love White Lotus, and I'm really excited for Righteous Gemstones. But the Dune show, I was like, this is not.
I don't know.
good.
I liked Austin Butler, though. He was so creepy.
Yeah, he was solid. It was pretty to look at.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing you could say about it.
I like movies that are nice to look at.
Good looking film.
That encourage you to go to the movie theaters and see it on a big screen. I did not have that experience with either of the Dune films. I probably would have appreciated it more.
Mike, I had this conversation with your buddy Mo yesterday.
Spates?
Yeah, most species, exactly.
No buckets.
The last Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, that came out.
Part one.
Yeah, well, and then they changed it.
And then they changed it.
Now
Yeah, it's like Live, Die,
Final
Repeat.
Reckoning, which Live, Die, Repeat. I will never call it that. The day after, or the what's it called? Not the day after tomorrow. It's called the. What was the original name?
It's called Live, Die, Repeat, isn't it?
No, it's called.
No.
No.
Friday after
You're proving why it should be called Live, Die, Repeat.
Oh, I'm just having a break part. But anyway, Dead Reckoning. I seem to remember you were like, it's okay. And so I didn't watch it in the theater. I watched it on a flight. And this is how good it was. Didn't fall asleep. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and by the end of it, the seething rage I had in me, you weren't the only one, but you and a couple other people were like, I was like, this movie was amazing. I should have seen it in a theater.
Yeah.
It's legit why when Final Reckoning comes out, I'm going opening night.
I'm not on the edge
for
of
sure.
your seat in
You
the
have
movie, in an airplane.
Like this.
Where do your knees go?
Inside the person in front of me.
So,
Edge of Tomorrow, by the way.
Edge of Tomorrow, that's it.
Baby.
I watched it again, and upon rewatch, I liked it more. But I think there was a couple issues with Dead Reckoning, Part 1, and I think chief among them, even though they had incredible foresight on the villain, but they needed to put a face to that villain, and I thought they missed the mark so bad on the baddie in the film that it kind of ruined it for me, because this franchise has had some really good villains attached to it, and this was one of the worst.
What level of depressed am I when I have zero interest in watching movies? Like, I don't feel like I don't get the joy in them
pretty
anymore. I'm getting
depressed.
boxed out from you guys, and it's just I have this feeling like, wow, I'm just missing an entire part of my life that I used
I'm sorry,
to
I don't
enjoy.
mean to make you.
No,
feel like
it's
you're missing
fine.
out.
I'm just coming.
Did you watch
coming to
Oilers
this
Cats
realization. I
last
did.
night?
I watched some of it. I was kind of working, so I didn't really. I had it on the background a little bit.
Oh man, what a moment! What a time! And we're going to. It's our 3rd annual Kitty Caravan, where I take a group of like 30 plus people to a Florida Panther game.
He says he takes a group, but we all pay for it.
we all go. But you know,
You're not
I
taking-
organize the thing.
not me.
All right.
Kidding, Mike.
Well, look,
Unconventional.
I mean, half of y'all don't understand interest payments. I mean, there's quite the sacrifice here. But Ryan Lomberg returns to Florida, a beloved Florida Panther legend.
Lomberg.
I love Ryan Lomberg. We had a great time with him at 11. Like he was, your feisty, enforcer type that had a penchant for some big moments, and just a vibes guy, just an iconic vibes guy.
I always think about TPS reports with him. You're going to need those TPS reports.
Is that the same name?
No? Okay. Reference flew everybody else.
No, I get the reference. I'm just trying to. Lomberg, was that his
Lomberg,
name?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but Bill Lomberg.
Lomberg.
Yeah, but Ryan Lomberg is matriculating his way down the East Coast, and he was in Tampa yesterday, and he was caught on a live mic he was asked. He had a pretty iconic goal in a playoff series against Tampa, an overtime winner, and he was asked about playing the Tampa Bay Lightning again, and he's like, I love the palm trees, I love the sunshine, and on a live mic for his RSN interview, he goes, but I hate these fucking guys.
Yeah.
Charged me up. Welcome back, Loms. You absolute ledge. He is going to get such an outsized reaction compared to what his actual contributions were for this team, because he's beloved. You go to a game, you still see number 94 jerseys out there, and I'm really hoping the fans bring it. They've been so good as all these former champions have come back and been honored. The Lomberg one, that's the one that I circled my calendar for. That's the guy that was everybody's like low-key favorite. You loved his tenacity. You loved his story. You loved his vibes. And I'm so happy he's coming back tomorrow, and I hope that it is a nuclear pop.
You've got a lot of history in this building, some good, some bad. Do you like coming here or do you hate it?
I like the palm trees and the sunshine, but I hate these guys.
Wow.
The best.
That's a great. The delivery is great there. The little pause and laugh, because that indicates I know what I'm about to do right now.
I mean, to answer your question about movies that I think would be good to win Best Picture for the movies, 2 nominations for that category. 1, The Substance, because horror film doesn't normally get a lot of love.
Sure.
I didn't love it. I thought it was a little too long also, but it was very interesting, very gross, good acting. Second one, Nickel Boys. Really good movie based on a book, and incredible acting, incredible storytelling. It's obviously about a very difficult subject matter. It's about these children being abused at a reformatory school in Tallahassee, but really, really well done, and I think it should be getting some more love.
It's nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. The guy who's nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay is Ramel Ross, who is the Georgetown player who played in a pickup game against Michael Jordan,
Bringing it full circle.
Randy Moss, and Phil Collins.
What do you think Phil Collins' basketball game is like?
He's only like 5'6". Probably a good
Is this
passer.
completing the
He's
circle?
taller than Prince, though, right?
Yeah. Scott Skiles is what I think of when I think of Phil Collins' game.
Is it because of the hairline?
A little bit. He's feisty, you know.
Yeah, point of attack defender.
Yeah. Getting in the paint. I have him putting his arm around Michael Jordan and telling him, like, When they double me, you got to go that way.
I have him calling for screens.
Oh, Randy Moss?
No, really having a moment.
No. MJ, you set the screen.
Oh, yeah.